Breaking news this morning as former UH football quarterback Colt Brennan has died at the age of 37 years old. Reports say Brennan was in a Southern California hospital where he was undergoing rehab when he was found unconscious. No other details have been released. But joining us now live by phone is attorney and longtime family friend Michael Green. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us live.
Yeah, I got the phone call a little while ago, and just profound sadness.
And what do you know about the details surrounding his death?
Well, I just found out that he was in a hospital where he's in rehab, and then to find him like this, unconscious and in a hospital is just, it's kind of mind-boggling. And, of course, some of the facts will come out. If all of them come out, I'll be surprised. But, it's the times I saw Colt, he'd come in with his dad or things we did together for interviews and trying to get his life back together. The thing I remember the most was his announcement at the stadium in front of everyone that he's slapped the table and laughed and said, "I'll be back for my next year, my senior year," which he didn't need to do. But, he felt an absolute responsibility to the university, to certainly Coach Jones for bringing him here, and the people of Hawaii who loved him. He was us. And unfortunately, after that, over the years, I met with him once or twice and his dad about trying to get some investments. But everything after that was kind of an omen about the car crash in the Big Island where he was sued even though he was a passenger because he had money. That went nowhere. And then representing him from time to time when he was arrested for minor things. But the sadness, the sparkle that you see in his eyes, that smile for everyone, slowly but surely over the years, it wasn't there. And the last time I saw him, he could barely walk. I didn't realize he'd been in the hospital for so long. He was in the office with his dad, and he walked into my office. He could barely use his feet. It's just really, really a sad day. And then 37 years old. There's so many horrible things going around worldwide today, and to people in Hawaii, and pain and things they're experiencing. This is, for so many years of what he brought to the people here, and the pride to his family and friends, and then after that, the years of sadness and deterioration of his abilities, and there were some issues about whether he had a brain injury and how much it affected his life and his ability to deal with people. He was just a wonderful, wonderful young man. I'm just very, very sad for all of us and his family.
Have you had the chance to talk to any of his family members yet?
No, I'm going to be in the office probably by 10 o'clock, and I'm just wondering whether his dad will call me, or I should even try to reach them this morning because of this this terrible news. And I just, I can't imagine how somebody could find him in a hospital room, comatose, and apparently, well, I'm not going to even guess at what caused his death. But my sense is the medical examiner will have a result. I think everyone close to him wants to know how someone so young who's trying to get treated, trying to get better, winds up dead.
And you had mentioned the last time that you saw him. When was that? And was that the last time you talked to him as well?
Yeah, I think that it's probably close to a year and a half or so. And then I saw that he was arrested again. And I think, with Colt, there comes a time where, the last time he got arrested, he didn't call me and his dad didn't. Our relationship as an attorney-client really wasn't a relationship as attorney-client. He could walk into my office and we were friends. When we went to court as someone I respected, it wasn't about billing him for anything. I just wanted to help him if I could, and hopefully he would get back to who he was before. I'm watching, your station now, and I'm watching him when he walked out of the police station and posted bail. I mean, this is, the last years of sadness and problems, unfortunately, greatly outnumber the years that he was here. And he was a special young man. And then when you see these things happening, the sadness that's part of it. You can't measure the sadness, but I have no doubt that everyone that knew of him or knew him would wonder what's happening, Colt. It didn't get better; it just got worse. And then to end like this is for all of us. Whether it's your newsroom and you in particular or everyone else, it's a sad day. It's a terrible loss for just humanity in a sense of who he was and what he did for the university.
And of course, he did so much for the university and for the fans here in Hawaii. Of course, taking UH to the Sugar Bowl in 2007. And like you said, he could have entered the NFL draft, but he decided to come back. Can you tell us more about what he said about playing for the University of Hawaii? He brought the state together during those years, the heyday of UH football.
That was, the things that he did on the football field, we hadn't seen. And we have some great players here that played that position, but not to the level that Colt did. And the joy, the sheer joy from where he came from, and in the mainland California, and he came here, and what he accomplished was unbelievable. And just the sheer jubilation and happiness. And then when I first came here years ago, I was honored to represent a number of our college players that went into the NFL. And there was not a question that if he had come out after the third year, I think at the very worst he would have been a second-round pick. I thought more likely a first-round pick. He was unbelievable. But that part of it, of his life, took a second place, a second share to what he thought he owed to repay us. And I, looking now at there's the picture of the crash on TV, but right before that was that smile. It was always there. And I just, it's you can't get into someone's mind, of course, and figure out why the sadness went on for so long. And then the physical part, I will tell you, was so painfully obvious. To see such a great athlete who could barely walk when he came in the last time, it's like he couldn't put weight on his feet, both feet, and he didn't really want to talk about it. His dad was there, and we spoke about it, but he became angry, not just at that meeting, but I think at what kind of the cards life dealt him. It's people can say, well, you know what, pull yourself up, man up on this thing. But there was the sadness all the time, and it went on and went on and went on. But I never even thought for a second this could happen. I was concerned about his safety in the sense of being around some of the wrong people, in the sense of what they would give him, addiction's a really bad thing. And then you couple the addiction with this you're the very top of who you are and what you could be, and then you wind up on the bottom as low as you can be. And it's this to me, I've represented athletes before that have had bad things happen to them, but the extent of the years of emotional pain that I could see, aside from the physical pain, just awful.
Michael, I know that this news is still sinking into you. It's still sinking into all of us across the state. But what will you remember the most about Colt? What will you miss the most?
But it's every time I ever thought about him or when he came in to see me, it was a smile. His eyes lit up, and he had that smile. And you know what? Everyone in the office, he just went up, he smiled, hello. He was gracious to everybody. Every place we went, he had something good to say. People wanted to just walk up to him and say something, even if it's just his name. And he was always available, always available. And then to watch, this as the years went by, this glow that I used to see about him, this smile, the gleam in his eye. Slowly but surely, it was because he got arrested or he was in pain about something. And he was trying to pull himself up, and he would one step forward, two steps back. And it was, it certainly wasn't for me to try to talk to him or scold him about anything. His dad was there, and I can tell you how the pain he had with Colt and the times he was in the office with him and the times I spoke to him on the phone. But, I can't lecture Colt. I mean, there was enough pain that he was going through to have to hear from me about things like that. And I just, we did interviews once he didn't want to do with certain investigative reporters here. And then some of it was very positive because they loved him, and some of it, I can tell you, was not very positive, was negative, and it hurt him. But that wasn't what caused the ultimate, downfall into drugs and alcohol and things like that. It's just that everything he had, the rug was pulled out. And people can blame him for a lot of things. But as I said, this addiction and sadness, when it gets you, is a really difficult thing. And like I said, the arrests were for minor things, but they kept coming. They kept coming. And then he was in hospital, like I said, for a while, where they were working on problems he was having walking. And then when I saw that, he walked in my office like an 80-year-old man. And I was just almost speechless. The picture you're showing now that I'm watching, that smile, the athletic ability, that's what I remember. That's what I'm always going to remember. My heart breaks for his family. His dad did his best he could to try to straighten his son out, but his son's a man, and any place Colt went, here he was a hero in Hawaii to everybody, and he lit up the room. But the candle, that light, as I said, over the years, it got less and less, and then there was just plain trouble and trying to keep him straight. And so, he doesn't get handcuffed and taken into the lockup and, have to face a judge. And the thing was, people in Hawaii, even judges and prosecutors, they have an obligation to make sure that, there's everyone is treated equally. But he was special everywhere, and I think people in Hawaii, knowing all of us, will remember the good things about him.
Yes, we certainly will.
Yeah, they will, and they'll be sad, really sad about this. But they'll remember the good things, and I think the people that knew him on the field, his teammates, other athletes, will only have good things to say. I feel that I was, over the years I've been here, this was a blessing for me to even be around him. Doing the legal work for him when he got into trouble was not something I was sad about that, but to get past it, only for it to reoccur again. You knew there was something going on, and it had to be fixed. And obviously, it never did get fixed.
Well, Michael Green, we thank you so much for joining us live here. Our condolences to you as well as to the Brennan family. Like you said, that smile and his athletic abilities is something that we'll never forget, and how he brought the state together during that storied career of his, and of course the time at the University of Hawaii. We'll never forget that. Thank you so much, Michael Green. Again, sorry for your loss.
I'm sad for all of us, folks. Have a good day.